Okay, well, Evan, it's really good to meet you. I've been looking forward to this for a while as we've talked. Uh, and just to introduce you to our audience, Dr. Evan Miller is the founder of Game Day Men's Health, which we're going to get into in some depth and detail. I'm very excited about the work that you're doing. But I'd like you to begin with just sharing a bit more in detail about kind of your, how you got started, your origin story. How did you
Yeah,
first get interested in this whole field? And then we'll get into more detail about how all this comes together.
awesome. Yeah, I will. Thank you so much, Jed. Pleasure to
Sure.
be here. I'm happy to kind of share my experience and how game day got to be where it is. Similar to you, my background is in kind of the clinical side. So I'm a PhD in clinical psychology, and so I come at this whole kind of medical healthcare world from this very psychological angle. So after grad school, I got right into the addiction treatment industry, started a treatment center, and really fell in love with the work. I just fell in love with treating men, especially helping them recover from drugs and alcohol, taking them from really broken guys to, you know, the light bulb because lights come back on in their eyes and they have the sparkle again and all these things. So really loved it. Owned my own treatment center, grew it, and man, treatment addiction treatment is 24/7. You're they're not getting sober from 9 to 5. It's 2 a.m., 3 a.m. calls. We did a lot of good work. But I kind of got burnt out. I was like, I want to do something else. I wanted to cast a wider net, and didn't want to just focus on addiction specifically for men. I wanted to kind of get quote unquote the average mainstream guy feeling better, And at the time, and here's where my personal angle comes in, I was 34, 35, and I'm like, man, I don't feel like myself. I've been an athlete my whole life, certainly take care of myself. I know how to eat well and sleep and all the stuff everyone knows and drink enough water and get exercise. But I just wasn't there, man. And just happenstance, went and got my lab work done. And I said, you know what? Would you mind testing my testosterone levels? And they said, nah, you're good. We'll test them when you're 60, 70. Don't worry about it. I said, no, please, can you I'm curious. Sure enough, they tested my testosterone levels and they came back at 237, which is the total testosterone of a much older man. I went, oh, okay, there's something here. And so this idea started percolating where, how about I create a model for guys that focuses on hormone health, number one? Let's put it in a setting that's comfortable and we can get into what game day's like. But that was
Yeah.
it. Off we went.
Well, good story, and obviously interacts with a lot of my history, which we'll talk a little bit about as we get in. But tell us when game day actually started and kicked off. A little bit about what you offer and some about what how you're different from other
Mm-hmm.
programs that are out there.
So we're still a young company. 2018, I started Game
Mm,
Day, and it was me, and it was one clinic, and it was one idea, and I started it in Carlsbad, California, which is in North San Diego. And I thought, I want to create a model that when you walk in, it doesn't feel like the doctor's office. It feels like a sports lounge or a cool kind of men's, hangout or, some sort of like a ESPN meets healthcare environment. And so I thought, all right, flat screen TVs, the blacks, the reds, the logo you see on my screen. Let's make it feel really comfortable and let's make it fast. So, Jed, as you know, guys hate going to the doctor, right? We're the most likely to miss appointments, least likely to show up. So I thought speed is the name of the game here. So I put a licensed lab in the clinic so that you can come in, Jed, get your levels tested in 15 minutes. You know your testosterone levels. So that gives guys no reason to go, I got to go home and I'll check you guys out later. It was super fast and seamless. And that one clinic in Carlsbad, 2018, it just took off, man, like a rocket. We had guys lining up out the door. There were, guys were coming in from all over San Diego feeling better and scaled from there. I opened up 3 or 4 more after that. And then I got this idea to franchise it in 2022-ish and thought, you know what? Let's do it. Because patients would come in and they go, this is a franchise? This looks like a franchise. And it kind of always got in my head, like maybe there's something more to the model. I knew it was certainly simple enough to scale and decided to do it. And then believe it or not, in 2023, it was just crazy. We became the fastest growing franchise of all time, believe it or not. We have 1,000 locations in development. We have 336 locations open today. It's April 22nd, 2025. We'll have 400 locations open by 4th of July. So the demand is huge, right? Guys are waking up and saying, I want to feel better. And I don't want to wait in line at my normal doctor. I want to go to a place like Game Day.
Oh, that is super. Well, I think you know a little bit about my background. Back in the 1990s, I came at it from having been a clinician for a long time, treated men and women, saw a lot of women going through the change of life, and my own wife was going through the change and all the things that go with that. And when she started getting treatment, she said, maybe you're going through something like that. I thought, no, I'm a guy. I don't go through that kind of stuff.
Right.
And at the time in the 90s, there was very little that was really
Yeah.
looked at with the change of life of what male men might go through. And I started to research it because I'm a writer and a clinician. I wondered, well, let's see what's going on. Very little literature. And
Yeah.
eventually I started, well, this is something I need to explore, and started doing research initially to even get the book written, which I called Male Menopause. I thought I'd write something that would show men are totally different than what women go through. And when I actually started doing the research, I found a lot of differences between men and women, but also a lot of similarities. And so when the book came out in 1997, it quickly became an international bestseller and translated now into 17 foreign languages. And one of the things we talked about, obviously, was the hormonal changes that go on with men as we age. So I've found game day, as I've learned about it, to be not only spreading like crazy, because as you know, there've been kind of waves of this. When my book came out in 1997, there was nothing. Then as things started to spread, and I traveled all over the world really giving talks at conferences and so on, is that then there were a whole lot. It seemed like everywhere you were going, there were clinics, mostly low testosterone clinics. That's all they did. And they came and they went. They didn't last very long because they really weren't providing, the kind of care that I talked about, the broad range of care that men needed. So talk a little bit more about what's unique about what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, because it really seems to be different than anything else that's going on out there. And not surprising that if you're able to make it available to a wider range of people, it would be very popular.
Yeah. No, I appreciate your understanding of the history of this industry and you being one of the pioneers. No one better to speak on it. We're the biggest, and it's not by accident. And there's been a lot of fly by night mom and pop men's low T clinics. What separates Game Day are a few different things. So, number one is it's designed for the modern men. It's designed for guys to come in and we say, look, give us 45 minutes and we'll send you on your way. We're not going to have you run around town, go to LabCorp and Quest. Like I mentioned, we have the lab in the clinic. So it's fast and efficient, number one. So if you're going to get guys to come in, it's got to be super, super efficient. Number two is we're really treating the whole person. We're not just going, here are the labs, let's treat the labs. No, we have a 3-step process. Step one is free labs. We offer free testing. So anybody around the country can come in and get his levels tested for free. And that's actually his PSA levels too, prostate levels. So we're the largest screener of prostate levels in the entire United States. We screen millions of men every year on prostate levels. So we're catching early
Mm.
prostate cancer. Step two is right in front of a licensed clinician. So we're putting you right in front of a nurse practitioner or an MD or a PA. And they're not just treating your labs, they're going through your whole health history. And they're saying, look, Jed, here's what your labs say, but tell me about you. What's going on in your life? What's going on in your marriage, right? What's going on at work? How are things with your kids? It's a truly holistic approach. And when guys feel that, they're like, oh, I'm being cared for. This is a different place. So that's a huge differentiator for us. And then really we lead with the science. We publish our own white papers. We have 350 doctors in our system. This is true medicine. We really take a lot of pride in doing this the right way. People still think there's this stigma around testosterone. Oh, it's a steroid, or don't you get it at the gym from the guy with the big muscles? No, right? This is oversight by medical professionals. And that's how we're, the largest. We have 336 locations today, and it's because we really do things the right way. We lead with our heart. That's something that can't be measured, honestly. I'm from healthcare my whole career. If you do the right thing for the patient, the money always follows. But if you focus on money first, patient second, you screw it up every time.
Well, as you know, that is a model that pretty much everybody will tell you they follow.
Yeah.
Nobody says, yeah, well, we're in it for the money, and the people's needs come second or third or fourth. But the truth is, throughout medicine, that's a model that is not being practiced. And I found that in my own work. And when I started out, testosterone was not understood, was not well known. I actually had to get a bibliographer to find articles because they were mostly not in English. So even to write
Mm,
a book in English, I had to get articles
yeah.
translated. And so one of my colleagues back in the day, you probably know his name, James McBride Dabbs, who wrote a book called Heroes, Rogues, and Lovers: Testosterone and Behavior.
Mm.
And one of the things he said, I still remembered, I'm going to give this quote. He said, in ancient Greece, an inscription at the Oracle of Delphi advised, know thyself. Dr. Dabbs then went on to say that we can't know and understand ourselves until we know about the hormone testosterone. So tell us briefly, there's a lot of science and a lot of things, but briefly, why is testosterone so important and how it impacts men and why it's kind of a cornerstone of what you do?
Testosterone is literally what makes us men. Let's start there. I mean, it is the hormone that makes us who we are, and it's responsible for so many functions for us as guys. I kind of like to reverse engineer this question a bit because when you have low testosterone, let's look at some of the symptoms, okay? Poor mood, poor energy levels, disrupted sleep, maybe some sadness, brain fog, low sex drive, lack of enjoyment in life. Now, you're a clinician, Jed. I'm a clinician. If we see those symptoms, what are we going? Depressed. That guy's depressed. He needs to go probably either get therapy or modern healthcare system says he needs an antidepressant. Let's get that guy on Zoloft or whatever it might be, the antidepressant of the day. That's kind of what we're in right now in modern society with men's health. And so if you take a step back and you say, wait, maybe it's not depression. Maybe all these things testosterone is responsible for: energy levels, mood, sleep, um, life enjoyment, sex drive, concentration, focus. It is literally what makes guys passionate and have purpose in life and more engaged at work. And I say this all the time: more engaged as fathers, more engaged as husbands. If these guys are feeling their best as men, they're better overall in the community, they're better guys in the house, they're better fathers, etc. So testosterone is literally, we look at it as like the foundation. And that's why we start with it at game day. It's literally the baseline approach for the labs we do. And we start there and then we build off of that. If your testosterone's healthy, fine. Then maybe it is something else going on. But if your levels are low, then let's just start there and try to optimize them to where they should be. And I say where they should be because we're not turning anyone into bodybuilders at game day. If that's what you think this is, it's not for you. We're really just trying to get guys' levels to that healthy range where those symptoms go away and they just start feeling like themselves again. So super important.
It's exactly. So, so important that we recognize both the 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 basis of manliness is our hormone levels, and our testosterone is a big part of that. And there's more to us than just, our hormonal changes. And you mentioned game day a number of times, and we obviously can see that. I know, I'm always interested in how people get the names they choose for
Yeah.
themselves. How parents name us, what they name us, and also what we name our companies. So, uh, just say a little more about Game
Yeah.
Day and how you came up with that name.
So, all right. So after I sold my last company, I, gosh, I looked at every new idea to possibly start up. And for me, it just came back to what's in my heart. And I thought, I want to help men and to help men feel their best. I just kept going, what is it when you want to feel your best and be your best? What is that like? I grew up playing sports my whole life. I just kept going back to like, when you want to be your best, it's game day. It's on. It's time to perform. It's time to be your best. It's game day. And so over like 48 hours, I whiteboarded the whole model. And my first son was just born at the time, and it was just that precious time where it was survival, right? I was a new dad. I had a new business idea, and I just kept going. What is it when you want to be your peak self? It's game day. It's game day. And that's where the idea came, and off I went.
Resonates, I think, with me as a man, as a father. Just a little bit about, my father background. I kind of got into the field of men's health with when my first son was born, and I made a promise to him that I would be a different kind of father than my father was able to be for me, and to do everything I could to create a world where men were fully engaged with their families throughout their lives. And now an older father. My wife and I have 6 grown children, 17
Wow.
grandchildren,
Oh,
and
congrats. So
four
cool.
great grandchildren. And one of our sons, we've all been into sports. I played sports my whole life, as have many many of my family members. One of our sons really has been into sports deeply, and his children very into sports. And 2 of my grandchildren uh, play in the National Football League. Actually, they're just retiring, because game day for them when they were growing up was, I want to go play sports, and they played all
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
Eventually settled on football. They came out of college, were drafted by the New England Patriots, and got 2 Super Bowl rings. And then they've been, as you know, in sports, they end up getting
Sure.
traded to
Yeah.
various other places and other teams, and now they're kind of finishing up their careers and getting back to their business world and wanting to do other things. The daughters in the family are also, interested in sports. 2 of them played competitive volleyball and in college, and one of them is a professional dancer. So, I'm very interested both in the sports world and in the
Yeah.
healthy world of males and females. And I know for me, as a father of both sons and daughters and grandfathers of multiple, male and female children, that you also recognize that not only are hormones and testosterone a cornerstone of maleness, but males and females, as we all know, or some of us need to be reminded, have what we think of as male hormones and female hormones,
Yep.
testosterone, estrogens, and so on. And that if you're treating any member of the family, it's going to help everybody. So I know you are cognizant of not only giving support for men, but also for women. Could you talk a bit about your understanding of both men's health and women's health, and how game day is connecting with
Yeah.
all of us who need that kind of support?
Yeah. So it's funny. It actually started because we have guys come to our offices and they'd go, I feel great, but like my wife's like, hey, what about me? Do you have anything for me? And so for a long time, we were like, well, we don't, we just focus on men. Women's hormones, let's leave that to the specialists. Let's just focus on the dudes for a minute. But then we started thinking, you know what, there's a real opportunity here. And we started slowly just incorporating some women's health services in our programs. And then here we are. We've launched a women's brand called Her Way Health and Hormones. We have a single office in Carlsbad. We plan to franchise it later in the year. But it's the same idea. We're accessible hormone therapy for women who want to feel better. And I think if there's a common thread between men and women in the hormone space, bringing it back to psychology for a minute, is there's a lot of shame involved in feeling not yourself and feeling less than if you're a guy, or feeling not as youthful if you're a woman, and feeling these like time has passed you by. And so what hormone therapy does for millions of men and women is it kind of unlocks that door of shame. And it says, wait a second, no, we're good. There's no shame here. We all feel better once we start just doing these simple kind of services to help ourselves with hormone therapy. And it's amazing what happens. You see this kind of like an element of bravery where they go, no, I'm good. I feel much better. There's nothing to be ashamed about here. I don't feel like less than or weak or like I just need to kind of hide and age away. And so it's really powerful work. If you focus on the emotional core of what we're doing, it really has nothing to do with medicine at all. It's about transformation. It truly is about transformation for all these people.
Well, and positive transformation, because God knows the world and humanity is at, I think, a time in human history where, we're really, as a species, in trouble. We're not taking care of ourselves very well in all levels. And it's exciting to hear that there is a place like yours that is been treating men for some time and now is making this process available for women. And I want to explore a couple of other related things with this that you've brought up that I think are worth noting and exploring. When I know when I started out doing the work and the studies on hormones, is that the attitude about men was one. Now that we know that hormones are an important issue, they would either just focus on testosterone and forget about other issues, and you've touched on that. The other was that we had this attitude that um, if you're unhappy or there's other things going on in your life, that testosterone can solve everything, that we neglect some of the other areas. And I want you to talk a little bit about here's what I began to see was that when uh, male menopause came out in 1997, the two issues that men seemed to be most concerned about was either erectile dysfunction, they couldn't, get the potency to get it up, or they were, having problem with desire and having a real desire for sexuality. And one of the things that we discovered, and you discovered, I know, and about testosterone with men and women, it does increase our desire. And often women didn't know that testosterone was tied to women's desire for sex. And so
Mm-hmm.
often when women would talk about losing desire, they didn't even know that the testosterone was implicated there. So talk a little more about the ways in which the kind of programs that you do really reach a broad spectrum of the needs that both men and women have.
Yeah, testosterone really it's that, simple starting point we say at Game Day and at Her Way. For men, obviously, it's the key hormone. Testosterone stipulate is usually what's used by our clinicians. We either do injections or we can do a pellet that gets inserted under the skin, or creams, whatever the patient's most comfortable with. But you're right, you're spot on. Women think, wait, testosterone, that's for men. Or if I take that, I'm gonna, grow a bunch of hair and have these huge muscles and turn into a bodybuilder. And it's so not true. Where just a much smaller dose of testosterone for women oftentimes is that new pep that they need with energy levels, with sexual desire, with combating the effects of menopause and perimenopause. Certainly, there's more to it with women where you might need to balance estrogen and progesterone levels, but they all interrelate. And certainly, starting with that testosterone dosing, getting that right. And again, having the lab in the clinic is so nice because 333 offices we can test those levels immediately and go, okay, you need more testosterone, or you need less, and our doctors are so good at just making changes on the spot, getting the testosterone balanced. And once it is, those symptoms disappear, you start feeling better. But the interplay between the sexes is truly fascinating. You know, the men need usually a higher dose, but women a smaller dose of the testosterone and can be certainly life changing. You know, you see women go, "Oh my gosh," like similar to how guys feel. I'm back.
So one of the other things I want to kind of bring back to something you said right at the beginning about the age at which people usually come in for help. When I wrote the book, Male Menopause, again, w way back, but I said from my experience back then that the the people that were coming, the people that were in need coming to our clinic were generally between the ages of 40 and 55. Um, but I recognized pretty soon it could start earlier as I was seeing more people. And you mentioned, it can low testosterone can happen earlier in life and later. I had guys, who
Correct.
were fine up until, their 60s and had good levels, but then things started to drop. So a little bit about both the the main people that you're seeing these days, and because you're seeing a lot of people of what's kind of the
Mm-hmm.
core demographic in terms of age that are coming, and then the broader range of people that you serve, younger and older.
Yeah, so we're treating millions of men. We're the largest screener of total testosterone and PSA in the country. So we are compiling so much data. And we just started this data kind of warehouse process in the last year. We're super excited to kind of crunch it, consolidate it, and then publish white papers around it. We're really hopeful to do a study with the VA this year, following veterans, starting them on testosterone replacement therapy and see how their PTSD might decrease. Um, but yeah, so we average age is still around 40 to 45. Having said that, we have a lot of men who come in, some in their late 20s. And I say that with kind of a caveat, which is the known side effect of testosterone therapy could potentially be it impacts your fertility, meaning that once you start testosterone replacement therapy, your body's smart, right? It goes, wait a second, I'm getting it from the outside. I don't need to produce it myself. And for men, what that means is, okay, there might be some internal shutdown of your natural supply. If that happens, it could impact your ability to have children and impact your fertility levels. So for the younger guys, and I say this very clearly and slowly and methodically because it is really important, it's usually not indicated for guys who are still, planning to have children. And if it is, it should be really monitored closely and use another medication to preserve testicular function so that fertility is preserved. Um, we do have some guys in that zone. I'd say the average, though, are these guys who are 45-ish, kind of done having kids and not super concerned about, having more babies and just want to feel better. And, it's interesting. There's a lot of new research coming out, Jed. I know you're aware of this, that shows men with lower testosterone levels, actually, it's linked to all cause mortality, meaning like low testosterone is linked to all sorts of early life diseases that can cause death. And so actually walking around with low T is more harmful than not. So at some point, the education process we do at game day is, hey, you're doing yourself a disservice for your health. You're not truly taking care of yourself if you're not monitoring your testosterone levels.
I'm making a note to myself. A couple of things you raised that I wanna I wanna tie into and explore a little more. Um, One of them is this idea that and this was some of the early findings that I had was that although initially there was a focus on uh, men's loss of desire and loss of erections, pretty soon what we found was that many men with low testosterone were becoming more irritable and angry. And that seemed to fly in the face of what was being talked about kind of in media of the idea of testosterone and guys that would, beef up on testosterone and have roid rage, they called it. You're taking high levels of testosterone in order in the sports world or in the bodybuilding world because you wanted to go out and, kick some butt and really. And in fact, what we were seeing, and I think this has been borne out by, many studies since then, was that the main problem with testosterone was low testosterone. And the first symptoms that we were seeing, and now, as you point out, there are many other difficult problems that come from low testosterone. But the initial
Yep.
ones were irritability and anger. And as we got looking into that, I wrote a book because I'm a writer and I publish things that I find useful and interesting. But I wrote a book called The Irritable Male Syndrome: Understanding and Managing the Four Key Causes of Aggression and Depression, which you mentioned. And what we found was that low testosterone was implicated in those problems, as well as now, as you mentioned, a lot of other, problems that have gone on. So I think these, as you point out, are really, really important issues. And the other thing I made a quick note of that you mentioned that I'd like you to talk a little more about was that again, a lot of the mythology around testosterone early on was the fear that if you take testosterone, you're causing prostate cancer. It was, thought to be, well, if you prostate cancer uh, gets worse if you have testosterone, maybe there's a cause. And we found that that was not true. And I want you to talk a little bit more, and I didn't know this till you mentioned it today, of the screening that you do for prostate cancer and how that ties in with not only testosterone, but how we
Yep.
can keep men healthy and functioning and alive by preventing prostate cancer.
Yeah. So 1 in 8 men are going to have prostate cancer. 1 in 8 guys. And people, when I say that, guys go, holy cow, that's very common. It is very common. But if caught early enough, super, super treatable. And so we take a lot of pride at game day because we have guys coming in their 30s, right? And they want to start testosterone therapy. And to start TRT, we need to check your prostate levels, right? Because if your prostate levels are elevated, then it's potentially you do have prostate cancer. And so we're actually catching a ton of early prostate cancer for these guys, and they get it treated and it's done. It's a thing of the past. But if that guy had waited till he was 50 or 60 or 70 or 80, that thing would have grown. Who knows, right? Then it's a much bigger problem. He could potentially have passed from that prostate cancer. So early detection is super key. It's the same blood test. It's a simple little vial, the same sample of blood that we use to test your testosterone. We test PSA, prostate specific antigen. The lab is in the clinic and agree with the results in 10 minutes. So it's that simple. To your point around PSA and testosterone causing prostate cancer, that's one of the biggest myths out there. I wanted to spell it. Testosterone replacement does not cause prostate cancer. If there's a prostate cancer already lurking, meaning your prostate levels are elevated, there's a cancer growing, and you put testosterone on top of that and start administering it, it can certainly accelerate the spread of the cancer. That's why we do the early screening. Because if your prostate level is healthy, under normally a 4.0 is what a urologist would say, then usually testosterone therapy is a necessary course and safe. And I say this, not being a physician, we have 350 doctors in our system. They all follow the endocrine guidelines. But so long as you're ruling out any prostate elevation, TRT is usually a pretty safe and effective option. Again, early detection is super key though. So that's the most important part here is if you're out there, guys, and you're going to a clinic and it's not a game day and you're starting testosterone and they're not testing your PSA, and there are a lot out there that don't do that, that's a problem. Come into game day, it's free. We're going to test your levels for free. That way you have peace of mind knowing that you don't have prostate cancer.
And, to me, one of the additional unique things and valuable things that you do, and the fact that you have so many clinics, is to check men's prostates, because we all have prostates. And, as an older man, we know that, you know, as we get older, they have a tendency to enlarge. And I've got an enlarged prostate that I have to deal with. And we also know that there's a concern about prostate cancer that is very different from an enlarged prostate. And mentioned that it's not the same thing. But if you're testing and men are coming in and learning about their prostate health, um, and they're learning about their broader, health for their whole reproductive system and the rest of their body, mind, and spirit, you're doing something that, is not only a game day, but a game changer, that
That's right.
is going to impact the lives of men, their families, their communities. And that's just, stupendous. So I
Yeah.
want to just honor you and underline that reality for the people that are
Thank you.
watching and listening, because that's something that, far as I know, no other clinics, that are focused on health
No.
are doing routinely, even general men's health clinics, and there are not very many of them, in the country. You're probably, not probably, for sure, the largest men's health broad clinics anywhere,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
this is something that I've been trying to advocate for years, but the idea for so many in the field, in the health field, is that men are not concerned about their health. We're too busy. We'd rather do other things. We don't take care of ourselves. And what you're doing, and I think, again, I just want to underline it, is another myth is that men don't care about their health. We do care about our health, but we also need to have health care that is responsive to the way men do health.
Bingo. Yep.
And exactly what you're doing is creating health clinics that men want to go to. And when
Yeah.
they know about it and they find out that it's responsive to how they do health care, they want to go and they want to find out about it, and I'm sure tell their sons and their friends and their colleagues what they can
Yeah.
do. Am I right?
It's exactly it. I feel honestly truly blessed. I had the idea, right, in 2018, but at this point, Jed, this thing is so much bigger than me. I mean, it is a movement. And for those reasons you just said, finally, there's a place where guys can go. It's comfortable. They're not having to wait in line all day. It doesn't feel like the doctor's office. They can be fast with their appointments, friendly staff, feeling better easily. It's a movement of millions of men waking up and saying, "Oh my gosh, there's a place for me that meets me where I'm at, treats me just like, a normal dude. I don't feel weird going in there, and I feel better. I got my life back again." So, I mean, I truly feel blessed. I mean, there's a reason we're the biggest. We're 10 times the size of our next competitor. And I think it's because of all these reasons, right? We really cater the environment to men and what we want. And when we do that, we just keep our eye focused on the mission, which is just this. I tell all of our franchisees, all of our employees, every single guy who walks in the office, treat him like a brother. Try to help him. If we can help him, great. If not, that's fine. Maybe he goes somewhere else and it's another issue. But if we truly lead from our heart with this model and really just try to help every guy make some sort of a change, we win. That's it.
Well, I mean, that's so heartening. And I want to ask you one important more question before we kind of wrap up and we tell people how they can be in touch with you, where they can find you. Obviously, you're many places, but we want to get into that. But here's a big question, and you've begun to answer it, and I want you to go into more detail, because um, anytime you have a really great idea, which you did, and you put it into form and it works and it begins to help people, there's a natural tendency to want to make it bigger and to make it more helpful and to reach more people, which you've done. The danger that I've seen, being an elder of the men's health movement over these many years. I'll be 82 later this year, and I can credit being very vital to the things that I've done in both supporting my own health and in working with other people to support their health. But in terms of programs, the the question that then comes up for me is, as you expand and you have more clinics, how do you take the energy, the care, the belief that you have, and be able to instill that in a very large, broad-based other clinics, so that no matter where people go, they're going to get some of the core. You can't be everywhere, but the core of what you believe, what you practice, and what you want for everybody.
So that's my primary role is culture. We call it culture or maintaining the heartbeat of game day. And that's literally something that I obsess about day and night. I'm very methodical in terms of how we maintain that. Because you're right, Jed, to have one clinic and make it feel and be the place where you're treating guys with respect and integrity, piece of cake. Two, three, four, five, easy. Even 20, you can kind of get your arms around it. We're going to have 1,000 open here in the next 3 years. It's literally impossible for me to go, are you guys doing the right way? Are you doing the right way? No, you actually have to have multiple kind of anchors and points of accountability. So the first one that we always look at is our Google reviews. If you go online and you look up any game day nationwide, see what patients are saying about the office. Patients are honest and they're going to leave either a good review or a bad review. I think we average a 4.9, 4.8 stars online every single game day throughout the country. And we monitor this every single day. I see a report. Is there a bad review in Tulsa, Oklahoma? That's a problem. Is there a bad review in Manhattan? That's a problem. Bad reviews normally don't happen at game day because we really do instill these beliefs in our franchise owners. And so that's the second point, which is how do we select the right owners to operate game days? Easy. If they come in and they walk in my office and they say, Evan, man, this model's great. I looked at the spreadsheets. Holy cow, you guys did so much in revenue and look at the profit. And, can we get more into the cogs and the finances? Red flag. But if they come in and they go, I just have a passion for healthcare, or I love fitness, or testosterone replacement changed my life. If they're leading with the heart, bingo, that's not going to go away. So there's a few different ways in which we anchor the culture. Having said that, folks who are not operating the right way or offices that don't instill kind of the game day way, which is treating every guy like a brother, we're pretty ruthless in making changes to make sure that the culture is strong because that is truly the secret sauce for us. That's why we've grown so fast. That's why we are the biggest. There's horror stories out there about these other places where they don't do labs at all. That maybe there's a doctor there, maybe it's somebody unlicensed just giving testosterone out, right? And they're giving a bad name to everything. And so we really just want to hold ourselves as the gold standard. And so far, so good.
Well, so good, and I hear that part of the way it stays good is that you care, and you lead from the heart, which is, I think, is something again we all talk about. Nobody says they they're cold and heartless, come to my clinic, but it's not easy to do, and in a culture, unfortunately, that is so oriented towards making a profit and oh my God, what's the bottom line? How do we compete? We got to stay in all of that, that those kind of values often get pushed aside by other kinds of values that in the long run don't work, in the long run are not helpful. And I really hear that you not only believe it, but you believe it enough to practice it and monitor, and you care enough, I'm sure, to not tell people in your various franchises, look, we want to really have good reviews, yes, but you also recognize that you can't be perfect. And, bad reviews can be an opportunity, which I hear that you take them as such, to go, great, how can we improve? We want to get better. We want to listen to people. And if there's something that isn't working, we want to find out what it is and how do we fix it. And that to me is it's not a secret sauce, but it's a sauce that not many people keep ag- aggregating and improving and continuing. So I want to support that in any way that I can. So for those that are watching and reading the article that I'm going to write about, what's the best way for them to get in touch and stay in touch with game day and begin to learn who you are, what you do, and how they can connect when they're ready to start
Yeah.
making
I
the
mean,
changes that are
everyone's
right
got
for
one of
them.
these, right? Everyone's got a phone. So we're everywhere, guys. Get on your phone, search Game Day Men's Health or testosterone replacement near me. we're going to pop up. We're everywhere. We're in your neighborhood. We offer same day appointments. Go on our website as well. You can book an appointment, gamedaymenshealth.com. You can text us. You can call us anytime. We're super accessible. So you really can't not find us. You know, we're everywhere. And when you do reach out, we're going to get you in and feeling better just as fast as you want. And that's the promise we have for you.
Well, I'm really pleased. I'm really great to meet you. I want to stay in touch with you, with your programs. Clearly, as you say, this is just the beginning. It's a great beginning, but there's so much more that that needs to be done if we're going to change the world for good. And I think this, I say this to people that come to see me is that, we need everybody on deck. We need men, we need women, we need communities. But men, I think, have a key part in this because men, when we're not healthy, do really bad stuff. I mean, let's be honest, when we're not in the right heart and the right mind in the right space, we're pretty destructive in the world. And yet when we are in the right space and, it's game day for us, we're really doing well, then we can really literally change the world and be the fathers that we need to be the, the leaders that we need to be. So bless you for what you're doing now. I hope we can continue, maybe do another interview. This went fast. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
I
other
love it.
things I'd like to, get into with you. But for now, thanks for being here, and let's make this the beginning of more ways that we can connect.
Let's do it. Awesome. This was great, Jed. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great. All for now.
Alrighty.